I just finished rewatching all 7 seasons of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, one of my favorite shows of all time, and it just so happens to coincide with IDW's release of their Deep Space Nine compendium, and that seems like a good topic for an episode of Graphic Adaptations. So let's tour the promenade, maybe stop in on the second level to see the wormhole open, and then grab a few drinks at Quark's. Welcome to Deep Space Nine. Although I guess some may try to dispute this, DS9 was the high point of all of Star Trek. I love the show and how it really expanded on the ideas of the Star Trek universe and developed the deepest characters in the series. It was at the forefront of sequential stories as opposed to episodic standalone adventures on TV. X-Files and DS9 both started in '93 and pioneered the popularity of this type of television that is now just the standard. But beyond the quality of the show itself, DS9's era represents the peak of the franchise. Those 7 years overlapped the first 3 seasons of TNG. It overlaps the first 5 seasons of Voyager. It sees the first 3 Next Generation movies released during its run. It coincided with the 30th anniversary, which produced the episode Trials and Tribulations, which has our heroes travel back in time to be edited into an original series, Star Trek series episode. Voyager did something similar the same year, but it wasn't quite as cool. Now, during this time, Worf joined DS9, and we got the Defiant. It's hard to explain just what it was like living through the peak of Trek. Primetime television would have 3 Star Trek shows on sometimes twice a day, plus reruns of the original show. I went to a Star Trek convention downtown at the Hyatt Regency and met Nana Visitor and got her to sign this print. I'll see if I can find it and put it up on the screen. I was 13 in 1993. There was a store not far from here on Rupert called Hyperlight Enterprises. It was a Star Trek store. Like, they had other sci-fi stuff, but they were primarily Star Trek. I had an aunt who visited from Germany, and I remember her buying life-size cardboard cutouts to bring back on the plane with her of Kirk and Spock. Now, if you don't believe me that the DS9 era was the peak of Trek, consider that Jerry Ryan joins Voyager in '97 to help the flagging ratings of that show, and then we get Enterprise, which was, just a step down, and it only goes 4 seasons, whereas Voyager, DS9, and TNG all get 7 seasons. So it's the first time in a long time that it doesn't get the Star Trek series doesn't get the full 7 seasons. And then after that's canceled, we get a pretty big gap before the J.J. Abrams movies that seem to be nicely mostly forgotten now. There was really nothing like Star Trek between '93 and '99. Now, this compendium collects 3 miniseries and a few short stories at the end. It's a good value if you don't already have one of the 3. The short and skinny of it, in my opinion, is that the first 2 stories feel like filler episodes, and the last story is wildly epic and yet strikes a really weird tone. We'll get to it. And by filler, I don't mean necessarily bad. I think it strikes the right tone for the show. Like, it feels like another episode, but I just don't think they would be a top 10 episode. So the first story, Fool's Gold, sees the station flooded with vandals and criminals who begin tearing apart conduits and searching every corner looking for a treasure map to the stolen wealth of the Bajorans during the occupation by the Cardassians. Quark has helped to stoke these rumors to boost his sales at the bar, but of course this kind of disruption could be very dangerous. And it's also the story with the worst artwork, in my opinion. Part of the difficulty with making a comic based on a movie or TV series is that you need to get the actors' faces right. Well, most of the book is okay, I guess, but this art is the worst of the 3. Kira looks weird throughout the entire series, never quite getting her face right. Now, part of the charm reading through these stories is recognizing the time frame for each story. So, for example, Fool's Gold doesn't have Worf in it, so it takes place during season 2 or 3 most likely. The second story, Too Long a Sacrifice, is a detective story for Odo. He's looking for a saboteur or assassin who blew up a restaurant on the promenade. This story does have Worf, so it takes place after season 4, so, it's right around that time period. Too Long a Sacrifice feels like an episode that we've already seen. A shop or 2 is blown up throughout the series, and this feels the most like a filler episode to me. Now, the third story, Dog of War, which is a play on another episode titled Dogs of War, is maybe the most interesting. Now, the other 2 stories feel like episodes that roll into the season and are mostly forgettable, though very much like actual episodes. Dog of War is something different. There are two conflicting tones here, and you'll understand what I mean in a moment. Quark is the middleman for a deal and is meant to hold a couple items for a client. One is a purebred corgi, and the other item is a piece of Borg technology, a headpiece like Locutus had. This episode takes place during a specific moment during the war where things aren't going well. We got the gray uniforms and we got the Defiant. So, on one hand, the story is about everybody on the station falling in love with this puppy that Quark names Latinum, or Laddie for short. Vic Fontaine, the hologram lounge singer, is hosting a dog park in the holosuites, and while they're looking for why this dog is so special, the dog is growing on them, and it's cute. The other side of the story revolves around the piece of Borg tech that Sisko wants to use to help the war effort, specifically using it to correlate data and being able to better direct the fleet in real time. This has some interesting weight to it because the Borg killed Sisko's wife Jennifer at the Battle of Wolf 359 when Picard was Locutus, and so he's going to have feelings about it. But of course he puts it on without testing it, and it's reckless and begins to lose me as a reader, honestly. Like, Sisko is an impulsive character sometimes, but this just seems so foolish. Like, how would you know it wouldn't assimilate you? Or maybe transmit the weaknesses of the Federation fleet to the Borg, who are still around during this time period since they're in First Contact as an active war, mentioned in DS9 proper as a continuing threat, and aren't finished as a concept until the finale of Voyager, which was not great. So the point is, I don't know, I just wasn't buying it. But what I found more difficult to absorb was the two stories running parallel, right? Like, cute dog, Borg implant. Who's a good boy? Resistance is futile. It's just hard to take the miniseries seriously when an entire run of alternate covers features your favorite characters holding their favorite puppies, you know? Not their favorite puppies, like puppies that the artists matched up with them. It's cute, okay? I get it. But the Borg stuff is such a strange tone shift, and it shook me as a reader. But it also had the most daring ideas and concepts of the three stories that are in this compendium. DS9 is interesting for many reasons. As I mentioned at the start, it's really the peak of Star Trek as a franchise, but it also breaks the Roddenberry ethos in many ways. The war and Section 31, just as brief examples. To begin the slide from high-concept sci-fi series that is aspirational to a jaded Star Wars knockoff with no guiding principle like we get in the Abrams movies or in the post-9/11 Enterprise revenge season, or the entire tone of Discovery and their mindless jihading Klingons. And despite all that, DS9 was still an excellent space opera with characters richer than what most of the TNG cast got to explore. Fans of the show will likely enjoy this book. Now, this is a decent read and a nice collection for DS9 completists, but one thing I wanted to add at the end was that the first story of Fool's Gold was written by Scott Tipton and David Tipton, and these guys spent the last bunch of years giving us really great Star Trek comics from IDW. I might do a video in the future about their TNG Mirror Universe books, which are just so much fun. But as it relates to DS9, there's another run of Star Trek comics simply titled Star Trek, which continue the return of Sisko after Season 7 concludes. It's pretty epic, and I'm definitely going to do a graphic adaptations video on that in the near future. I'm really excited about reading that one. I'm just starting the run right now. It's actually 2 books. There's Star Trek, and then there's also a Defiant book where Worf's the captain. Anyway, we'll get into that in another episode. And if you want me to be motivated to do that one faster, put it in the comments, because I love talking about Star Trek. All right, if you liked the video, then please give it a like. Because that's really just being honest. You said you liked it. It wasn't me. I said, if you liked the video, and you were like, I did like the video, so you got to give it a like. And that's my fuel. It's kind of what keeps me coming back in 7 days. So I'll see you in 7 days.